Mai everyone, welcome back from your quick break. I am very excited to introduce our next session and our speaker and culture bearers. As we know, it is an incredible kuleana, an incredible responsibility that we have, especially here in Hawaii, to honor the works of composers of color and culture bearers. And so it is my honor to introduce a dear friend, Penelope Cruz, who is the ACDA Eastern Region President, the outgoing co-chair of Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives of ACDA. She is the high school director of White Plains High School in New York, and she brings with her incredible colleagues, composers and culture bearers, Dr. Marcus Garrett, who is on faculty at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, Dr. Daniel Alfonso, who is the director of choral activities at Cal State Stanislaus and a composer, and Dr. Ahmed Anzalua, who is the artistic director of Border Crossing. Penelope, please take it away.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm so excited to be with you. It's maybe Hawaii hot here in New York today, but I wish I could be with you. Nonetheless, I suppose one of the silver linings of all this pandemic is us getting used to this and being able to zip in and be in each other's lives and have the visitors, my colleagues who are with us today. So I'm just going to jump into it. We'll start out with why is it really important to include composers of color as part of our repertoire? Really, it's a responsibility of representation. So I'm going to just make sure I can share my screen here. This is the choir that I was in high school outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as you can see, it's not really, I was one of very few people of color in the school and in the choir. And that was my experience through most of my education, continuing on into conservatory and afterwards. In contrast, my work now is, this is my choir from last year, a completely different set of faces. And I have a different responsibility, I think, in some ways to them than maybe my choir director had to me, except that I do think it's really everybody's responsibility to make sure that they're addressing all of the students. But particularly when you have so many students from different backgrounds, it's important to make sure that your repertoire and your composers might represent the diversity that you have in front of you. I had the experience of a year or two ago. I was conducting an all county in New York, in a part of New York that's predominantly white. And I did a Filipino song, Paru Parang Bukid, that I grew up singing and dancing to, actually. And we sang it in Tagalog and the students really got into it, and it was a great experience. And at the end of the concert, I was standing outside greeting the singers and the audience, and a woman came up to me who was clearly Filipino and said, my child's not even in the choir, but my child's in the orchestra. And I came to this concert and never would I have expected that I would hear a piece of music from my own culture performed on this kind of stage and sung so well and in the language. And she was really moved by that. And I thought, yes, because now she understands we're naming the music and the culture worthy of being on the stage and worthy of education and worthy of the time. And that message, I think, is what resonates with so many of us when we hear the music that is part of our culture. So you do that for the one kid, you do it for all the kids, but then there's also another reason to do it is just the richness of experience. Early on in my career, I was singing a professional choir and working with and hearing children's choir. And those choirs were already performing music from lots of different cultures and composers from composers of color, and it was a new repertoire to me, and the music was so profound and moving and meaningful, and I wanted to be part of that experience as well. We need to normalize the idea that people come from lots of different backgrounds and cultures, and honor that, and also realize how much we can learn and gain from being in that experience. Those Jace knows I am a huge foodie, and I love eating lots and lots of different kinds of foods. And it's so exciting for me when somebody shares with me a cuisine that I'd never had before, or when I get to share that with somebody else. And it's part of our education, and you experience the world in a new way, and it gives you new reference points. And I really feel that music does the same thing. So those are kind of those are my intentions, and those are my motivations for doing this kind of work that I've been doing really since after my very traditional conservatory training. So many of us, especially at the start of our careers, program what we know from what we sang in the choirs with the conductors that shaped our musicianship and shaped our experiences, like that picture of the choir that I showed you from my own high school experience. And many of our formative choir directors program based on their experience. So there's this rich and wonderful, but perhaps narrow river of repertoire that we're all experiencing. And it doesn't change, and it doesn't get wider or branch out unless you do the work to kind of go beyond all of that happening. That's the point kind of in doing this sort of work and this kind of research. Today's, it's kind of fast and furious. Today's experience is meant to be sort of a chance to get some names, some publishers, see some videos, hear some things, so that you can start your own research and go down your own rabbit holes of the next YouTube video or the next composer, or if you like this, you might like this. It's a place to start if you haven't been doing this. I'm going to talk really quickly about programming music by composers of colors. It can be idiomatic or not. But if you are doing music, so idiomatic would be like spirituals into Black culture, right? So if you are doing music that is idiomatic to the culture, you really want to stay with arrangers who are of that musical culture, because you have a better chance that they bring an understanding and respect for the music to what they're doing. But also, you don't want to just stick with what's idiomatic, because you really want to encourage all composers of color through buying and performing and amplifying their music to compose in whatever vein they choose to. Think of it as non-traditional casting in theater, right? Non-traditional casting is defined as the casting of actors of color in roles where race, ethnicity, or gender is not germane. Sometimes the race and musical culture of the idiom of the composer of the music is germane, and sometimes it isn't. So you just want to be careful about how you're choosing what arrangements. If you're doing music that's folk music or whatever, is that you're choosing arrangements that are from somebody who's well-versed in it. As Jay said, we have some guests today who are composers, arrangers of some of these pieces that are knowledgeable about the composers and cultures and backgrounds. They're here because I asked them, and could make the ask because I've developed relationships with them. Those relationships happen maybe because we are people of color who have identified with each other and identified and seen each other at various events. But I've also developed these relationships because I've continued to learn and grow, and we are all part of each other's growth. As you develop these relationships, because it can, first of all, put people of color in front of your choir, be a resource to you to help with the language or performance practice, or to verify legitimacy of an arrangement or performance practice of some pieces. For example, today you'll hear from Daniel. And Daniel I first met because my students were singing the Mozart Requiem at Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center, I can't remember. And Daniel was the conductor. And my students came up to me and they're like, hey, Miss Cruz, go find out what kind of brown he is. So I had to go speak with him and say, Daniel, my students want to know what your story is. And that was really powerful, both for, I think, for me and for my students. And now it's resulted in lots of wonderful musical and non-musical exchanges that I've had with Daniel. And it's all because my students saw him, I saw him, and we just recognized that we would have some common bonds, right? So a lot of the pieces that we're going to hear today, I have done before. Some of them I haven't. I was doing my research. I originally did this presentation for New York ACDA, and I hope you enjoy it. At the end, you'll get a spreadsheet with all the links to all the pieces, so don't feel crazy that you have to get everything down. You'll get access to that. I'm probably going to play like a minute or so of each piece to kind of give you an idea. I want to make sure that our guests get a chance to speak about the music as well. And we're just going to go. If you have questions, maybe somebody can monitor the chat and we'll try to get to those as we go along. All right, I'm going to share a different screen and hope that all of this works. Oh, hang on, I'm going to do it one more time. I just didn't share it a particular way. Share screen, share computer sound. Okay. Sorry. Okay. All right, here we are. The first piece is Lord, Make Me an Instrument of Thy Peace by Roger Holland. I forgot to mention that feel free, you're all on mute, to go ahead and sing along as you'd like as the music comes up and as the recordings are playing. The next piece is El Barquito by Alberto Grau. I'm going to start it off so that you can see this choir.
Chiquitico,
actually my high school, mostly sophomore girls, were singing that right before we all went into Safer at Home. So even though there's younger students here, probably elementary school kids, I've done this actually with high school kids, as well as that first piece that you heard before. The next piece is Steady Soldier by Deirdre Robinson. And I'm gonna just play this and then show you the music afterwards.
Steady soldier till I die. I'm gonna fight and I'm gonna win. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, gonna be.
Oh. All right. So here's the music for this. And when I first was looking at it, I knew this composer. I thought, oh, it's an arrangement of a spiritual, but it's not. It is her original composition, and Valencia Scott Bay is the lyricist. So I said, I don't know who Valencia Scott Bay is, and I went and did research on her and went down a whole nother, she's a musician herself, went down a whole nother rabbit hole. I invite you to do that because it's really, she's got some really interesting things going on as well. The next piece is Why Do We Sing? And I'm going to play this for you. And I had an interesting experience with this when I did this in New York. I played this recording with this score shot because it was easy to do because it's what's on the publisher website. And my colleague Eric Williamson was like, that's not really how the piece should sound. Let me send you another recording. So those are also, that was a way, it's somebody I had a relationship with who felt comfortable enough saying to me, hey, that's not really how that should sound. And I was happy to do, I kind of knew that, but again, it was easy to pull it up this way. So I'm gonna play a little bit of it from the recording on the website, and then I'm gonna play the recording that he sent to me.
Why do we sing when no one is listening? Why do we sing when nobody cares? Why do we sing when we could be doing something else or pursuing the things of this world? Why do we sing?
Okay, so you have that in your ears, and then here's the recording he sent me. So I just wanted to say something about that piece. When I teach in a public school, and so sometimes it's a little bit awkward to do some gospel music because it is of the church, and there is a separation of church and state. So I do try to find gospel pieces that maybe, and I also have a dominant, not dominant, but a large enough Jewish population in my school that when I do choose religious music, I try to sort of stay away from the Trinity aspect, really heavily Christian pieces. The middle of this piece of Why Do We Sing goes right into the doxology, and then it returns to this idea. And I think you could probably, and the piece is really quite long, I think you could probably do the piece and take out that middle section. Okay, the next piece, I'm going to turn over to Daniel. Daniel, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute myself. By the way, if you don't mind, I just want to say that I wrote some information about El Braquito in the chat. I just want to, the song is actually a Spanish children's song, and it's arranged by Alberto Grau, who is, I love to say this because everybody says, you know, the wife of, so I like to say the husband of Maria Guinan, who is, you know, from Venezuela and has written quite a bit of choral music. Okay. Now, do you want me to say something about Rosa Amarela? Okay, so Rosa Amarela is a piece from Brazil. By the way, sorry, I'm from Brazil. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, whatever you are. I live in California and I've been in the US for a very long time. I came to study and stayed. Don't worry, I'm legal, I have my papers. Then this piece I wrote for, I'm joking everybody, just relax. But I do have my papers. I wrote this for the Los Angeles Children's Choir when Ann Tomlinson used to conduct, that'd be the director. And she was taking her group to Brazil on a tour. And so I wrote this piece for them to perform there. Ended up that they did not perform on the tour, but they performed the piece for me. It's based on two Brazilian folk tunes. One is the name of the title of the piece, Rosa Amarela, which means yellow rose. And towards the middle of the piece, another piece is quoted. It's called A Linda Rosa Juvenil, the beautiful young flower. And those are two songs that I learned as a kid. I would play this, you know, and back when I was a kid, I played with the Flintstones, and we kind of played holding hands and dancing in circles. And every one of these children's songs, we call them cantigas de roda, circle songs. They had some choreography when the kids would go in and out of the circle, they would dance, they would be expelled from the circle, brought back in. So it was a really fun game for kids to play. And so I have seen Brazilian choirs perform this piece with choreography, doing the movements and the that the kids do, which is really simple. And I decided to add a piano part, but the piece works well without the piano too. And it basically talks about the beautiful yellow rose, which is a very popular folk tune in Brazil. Even Villa-Lobos, not that I'm in the same caliber of Villa-Lobos, but Villa-Lobos wrote an arrangement of this too that is very popular with choirs in Brazil. There is a little whistling in the beginning that I'm yet to see a choir do this whistling well, but you can replace the whistling with a flute, with anything. You know, the kids can hum the whistling if they can't do it. But it's a really simple piece, and it's meant for the kids to have a fun time singing.
All right, here we go. I just want to say that I did do this with my choir, and I called Daniel and I was like, Daniel, you have to fix my language. So we did diction work with him, and then I did that with my students, and it was really valuable because we know as the diction of the language really is another element to the musical effect of the piece, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing it as well as we possibly can.
And Penny, if I may add one little thing, I'm always very conscious that people are afraid of Brazilian Portuguese. Portuguese is a language that, a lot of people get confused because it looks a lot like Spanish, but it doesn't sound anything like Spanish. So one easy way, I'm happy to help, but one easy way to think about Brazilian Portuguese is to ask, think of it as you're singing in Latin, and there are only a few corrections to be made if you think of the vowels as Latin and most of the consonants too. I'm also super happy to help out. And all of the music that I've published in the US, I'm very conscious to put very little to include as few words as possible. So I'm very conscious that the text is not too wordy so that people don't waste too much time working on diction instead of really working on musical elements. So it's good to see, thanks Penny for including me. Good to see Jace and some familiar faces there from his choir, and congratulations Hawaii ACDA for this conference.
Thank you, Danielle. Marcus, are you in the house?
Yes, I am.
We're doing the Samuel Coleridge Taylor piece. Do you want to speak about your research and your work?
Yeah. Oh, I should probably turn my video on. All right, there we go. Hello, everyone. I am Marcus Garrett. My pronouns are he, him, his. And over the past few years, I have been doing research in the non-idiomatic choral music of Black composers. And I think Penelope and I guess, it was the Eastern region, yeah, in Pittsburgh. Yeah, so that was like one of the first sessions that I did. And what I learned after graduating from historically Black college was that most choirs that did not have a predominant, where the majority population was not people that looked like me. They didn't know a lot about the original choral music of Black composers. They really only did the idiomatic, which is what Penelope was talking about earlier. So I was like, oh, some people just need to understand what all of this is. And I really, just to say something really quickly, I like what Penelope talked about normalization earlier. And it's important for us to, if you're thinking of Black composers, the spirituals, gospel, jazz, those are great contributions. I mean, I love Roger Holland, and Gail Jones Murphy is one of my favorite people in the world. If you ever see her in person, she will always have a flower in her hair. She is amazing. And they pretty much write in those styles. Unfortunately, when we don't show our students, whether they be Black or not, that composers can do other things, and sometimes they feel that they can't write like Bach, or they can't write like Eric Whitacre, because we only say, well, you have to do what Moses Hogan and Stacey Gibbs and all of those other wonderful composers. And so it's just important for us to make sure that we give that representation of the music that's considered outside of the culture, the same way we like to, where people are trying to normalize the use of pronouns, which is why you see them in my profile right now. So Samuel Coleridge Taylor, 1875 to 1915, he was actually more popular than Elgar when he was alive, and Elgar did not really like that, but this is one of his unaccompanied pieces, and it's beautiful.
And you should definitely sing along as we go. Here we go.
It's
So I completely found this piece by going to Marcus's website, where he has all of this, all of the work that he's done, started in a collective space, and went through it. There's a whole treasure of things there, and here's the music on CPDL. So I just want to make sure that you know that. The next piece is, Marcus, are we good? We're gonna come back to you, but is there anything else you wanted to say about this one?
Oh no, we can keep going.
Okay, so this is On Children by Issei Barnwell. Most of you probably know that Issei Barnwell, Wanting Memories, but this is a piece that's SSAA, originally sung by Sweet Honey in the Rock, and so you know that the low A, alto 2 in this could really be sung by a bass. And in fact, I have done this both SSAA and SATB. I just changed it, I think, by a step. I think it's in C major originally. So let's just listen to a little bit of this.
Your children are not your children. They are the sons and the daughters of light, longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and the daughters of light, longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts. They have their own thoughts. They have their own thoughts. You can house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in a place of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in dreams.
So you'll notice that I don't have the score for you here. The score is available and you should definitely buy it. But when I did teach this piece, I taught it in oral tradition, which is sort of more in keeping with the genre and style of this music. So that's another thing to think about. But definitely make sure that Issei Barnwell gets her bucks, right? All right, moving on to Plena. So Diana Saez is a conductor and composer at Towson University from Puerto Rico. And she couldn't be with us today because I think she's actually on her way to Puerto Rico right now. When she talked about this piece, she talked about how plenas is a genre of music that is really sort of community sung. And maybe they tell a story or talk about the condition of the world or tell news. But it's something that once you hear, if you know this music, the style, once you hear these rhythms that are outlined here, that are like the güiro and the a drum, I can't remember what it's called, that you know that you're in a plena, right? So here is a little bit of plena. Whoops, sorry, hang on. Okay. All right, and Marcus, back to you. and as a composer now.
So yeah, the piece that Penelope chose is called "Sing Out My Soul." It was commissioned by the Eastern Region ACDA for this most recent conference. Linnell Joy Jenkins was the conductor of that, and another woman that I just love so much. Yeah, it's been nice to be asked not only, 'cause before this time, most of the music that I had done were spiritual arrangements. And so even though I talk about the non-idiomatic, I still love spirituals. I love them. And I want people to still buy some of mine that are still out. Like, I have no problem with that. but this piece, I chose this particular text after going through quite a few. When it's joyful. And so I was like, okay, I enjoy being happy. But the thing that got me was like the second and third stanzas. And I only took a line from each of them, but it says, "Think not of death, strive not for gold." And when I shared that with Linnell, she just said, this is so important for our younger students to understand that it's in the social media era where it's all about what you see and trying to be like other people, having the same things that they have. The most important things that we can actually have are things that are not tangible. So it's not going for gold and that kind of stuff, or not even always having to think about some of the sad times. Sometimes it's just about changing your mindset about what are the happy things that are actually going on. So many of us were not happy that we didn't get to have our concerts, but we have been blessed that we are able to now. I wouldn't be at Hawaii ACDA had it not been for us to be able to have everything virtual right now. So there is a silver lining to all of it in the midst of the terrible tragedies. But a lot of times it is just about changing your mindset. Unfortunately, we didn't get the recording because the company sent it to the coordinator school 2 weeks after they shut down. So I haven't gotten the recording yet. So it's just a MIDI file that we're going to listen to. But there are 2 groups that are actually working on recording it right now. So yay.
And I'm going to show you the essay. You have it scored for.
Yeah, you have it for, it was originally SATB. So the 2-part can work for either essay or TB, and then, yeah, SSA and TTB, but it's not really that. There's not half the amount has DVC.
Right. So I'm going to play this. I'm showing you the 2-part. And here we go. You definitely have to sing along because it is just MIDI. Thank you, Marcus. Our next piece is, I have to Filipino represent, especially knowing that we were going to be in Hawaii. So this is Kaysay Sayan by Nilo Alcala. And I'm just going to play this for you. This is certainly on the more difficult end of things. Here we go. All right. The next piece is called Lama Bada Yatana, and it is, let me show you the score here. Shireen Abu Qadir is from Jordan, and she is active in Toronto as a conductor and in Jordan as a conductor and arranger and composer. This is a piece that I did do with my choir. You'll notice that it's soprano bass, and then an alto part comes in, then a tenor part comes in. But these pieces are, these voice parts are really interchangeable. You can put whoever you want on whatever voice part. And I'm just going to play a little bit of this recording.
Dum 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 dum.
لما بدا يتثنى لما بدا يتثنى يا ليل يا ليل يا ليل يا عين حبي جمال فتنا يا ليل يا عين يا ليل يا عين أو ما بيلاحظ أثرنا أو ما بيلاحظ أثرنا يا ليل يا ليل يا ليل يا عين غصن ثانا حينما يا ليل يا عين يا ليل يا عين
As I said, I did do that with my choir, and I did a lot of listening to, and the recordings on YouTube vary greatly, and you find what it works for your choir and is in the style, is appropriate to the music. Ahmed, are you there? Oh, there you are. All right. We're gonna do the De Amor Heridos first. You can introduce yourself and go ahead.
Oh, well, hi, my name is Ahmed Fernando Ansaldua. I am originally from Mexico. I live in the Twin Cities. I direct a group called Border Crossing, and we've been specializing in Latin American music for a while. And yeah, I think Penny's going to play two pieces.
Sure. Do you want to speak more about Ramon Noble?
So if you're looking for arrangements of Mexican folk song, Ramon Noble, you cannot go wrong with his arrangements. These are from back in the 80s and 90s, but these are the arrangements that choirs in Mexico perform. Ramon Noble arranged literally thousands of folk songs. I've lost count, and not all of them are published. And in fact, for example, De Amor Heridos, this one he might actually have written himself or composed himself, because I don't know anyone that's ever heard the song. But the chord progression and the style are very much in the style of a mariachi song from like central Mexico. So it certainly matches up to a lot of songs from that area. When you perform Latin American music, there's usually this impulse to add percussion to it and to do it very rhythmically. And that does not apply to a lot of folk music. And this is a good example. The Amor Heridos, it being sort of the mariachi style, you would sing with more of a bel canto sort of tone. And you'd be encouraged to sing it very legato, very rubato, even if it's allegro, and definitely do not add percussion. Mariachi groups do not have drums. And this is a piece that is very much about this sort of Italian style operatic singing. If you look for like a good recording of a good mariachi group, you're going to hear that sort of very operatic sort of tone with vibrato and portamento and all that sort of stuff. And definitely lots of squillo from your tenors. You want to get those tenors singing out. That's like the hallmark of this music, bright tenors.
Here we go. Whoop, sorry. Come on, Facebook.
have.
That's all right. There we go. We'll give it one more second to come on. Nope. Go ahead. Go. And we're going to get about to hear Ahmed's choir itself doing Alma Llanera. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Oh, before I go to Alma Llanera, I was gonna say if you do a lot of Latin American music, you're gonna find a lot of la la las that are like imitating guitar. With English speaking choirs, you probably want to substitute that with a da 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 or na 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 because those L's tend to sound kind of gross. And Alma Llanera is no exception. Now, Alma Llanera, this is sort of like the second unofficial national anthem of Venezuela. It's a really beloved piece. And it's in a style of dance and song called a joropo. And a joropo is very lively. It has certain instruments that you want to include, and the voices are imitating it here. But echar joropo also means to like have a party. So this is a song where actually percussion and adding things to it is welcome. The maracas are the very typical instrument that you will find in joropos, and joropo maracas are never in the background. They're never boring. They're always very featured and very virtuosic. And the thing about Alma Llanera, it lends itself to some teaching moments in the classroom. I've done this one a lot with like when we go visit schools. Some things to know about Alma Llanera is that the text is gendered. There are two versions of the text, and most of the versions that are published in the United States use the female text that talk about putting bows on her beloved's horse. And there's a male text, which is I'm riding on my horse. And that lends itself to some conversations or some switching around of text, and there are alternate texts that are used in Venezuela. Other things that you can talk about are there are dance moves that are associated with this, and they're not hard to learn, and they're basically in the music. You have like stomping motions with the feet, and you have like swaying motions with a hat with a skirt, and they're both kind of combined in the music. One thing about this recording, so my choir Border Crossing, we worked for an entire summer with La Escola Cantorum de Venezuela and Maria Guinand last year, and we're sort of like partner choirs. We've been nicknamed like La Mine Escola or the Escola in Minnesota. And the thing about after working with them, we have a lot of relationships with them. Many of their singers come and sing with us. And something that's happened is that we've tried to raise awareness of what's going on in Venezuela in the last year and a half. So every performance that we do, our typical first encore is Alma Llanera, and I'll take like 3 or 4 minutes to talk about the political situation in Venezuela, certain organizations you can donate to or support, you know, that sort of thing. This is an encore from a concert. We were all full of energy, so it's very on the fast side. If you do Alma Llanera, it should be a little bit slower than this.
And I'm just going to add that Ahmed and I had a conversation about this because I did, and this is the SATB version of it. And if you look at it, and if your tenors are not as fuerte as they could be, you may not choose to do this piece, but there is an SAB version that approximates it and is actually fairly satisfying. So that's another way for you to go on that. Is that all right? Say that, Ahmed?
A quick thing, the SAB version is a little bit trickier. The two versions don't match up if you try to put them together.
Okay, you can't put them
together. No, but the SAB version also works really well as a two-part SA version with an instrument covering the bass part. So I've done that SAB version with a double bass playing the bass part. And soprano altos on the top two parts, that works great.
Here we go. Let's listen to a little bit of this. right. I think, Jace, you probably need to stop me. There's one last piece that I'm just going to mention. This is The Caged Bird Sings for Freedom by Joel Thompson. Joel Thompson is the composer of The Seven Last Words of the Unarmed, which many people have been looking to in this Black Lives Matters moment, or movement, I should say. And it's performed, it's part of the Exigence series. Exigence is a choir conducted by Eugene Rogers that is made up entirely of Black and brown singers, performers, professional musicians. And this piece is definitely a challenge, but I invite you to look at it, and it's part of Exigence. Now, that group now has a series that is published with Hal Leonard. That's it for me. I think I can, Jace, let me know what we're doing now.
First of all, can we just give Penelope and this incredible curated body of resources, both living and on paper, for all of us. I think it's such an incredible way of modeling how to move forward with our work. And I know, speaking on behalf of myself and for those that identify as Hawaiian cultural practitioners, there's a lot of transfers to make on how we navigate Hawaiian choral music and that divide between how we're trained Eurocentrically and our responsibility to look out into the outside world. Penelope, if you don't mind leaving your email in the chat, and if anyone has any questions or would like to follow up further, please connect with her. I'd also like to just offer a mahalo on behalf of, or to Dr. Garrett, Dr. Alfonso, and Dr. Anzaldúa. Can we also have a round of applause for them as well? So on behalf of Hawaii ACDA, thank you to Penelope and her team. If you have questions, please follow up with her. Friends, it's 11:08. So this is what I'd like for us to do. Let's reconvene at 11:12. So just a quick break. Quick water, bathroom, that type of stuff. And then we'll go ahead and welcome our next presentation by Dr. Molina. Sound good? All right.